My name is Tracy Lynch and I'm the Creative Director of the Nando's Design Program. In 2020, we launched the benchmark competition, and the work that you see as part of the showcase here at Con Hill, as part of the Basha Uhuru Showcase, is the work of 7 of the finalists from the benchmark competition.
Next up is our design team here. We have Tracy Lee Lynch, who's our curator and head of our Nando's design program, Malibongwe, who is our host with the mostest, and some of our designers who are involved in the Nando's Hot Young Designers program, and they're going to be talking about collaborating and working on some of the bench designs that you see today in the exhibition. If you haven't seen it already, it is in the women's jail. It's beautiful, a lot of the benches.
I looked at like African history and like throughout history what had been used as dividers or things that were used to create space. And then I looked at the traditional African grass mat or itanzi or mipinzonga isangu. And then, yeah, for me, I just looked at that and then adapted that into like the design and the form. So if you look at like the bench itself, like the movement itself is inspired by the movement that you find in the traditional African grass mat. Yeah.
Right here, I have my honeycomb coffee table made out of steel, glass, and 3D printed legs. I made a server. It's a long piece, so it's actually pretty big. It's 2.1 meters. That's a concept that I'm still working on. It's something that I'm actually pushing really hard. And then I also have my mirror that I've done, which was also one of my concepts that I've done before, but then I never really showcased it to anyone except for here, you know. So yeah, those are my designs.
I actually designed the Gimba cabinet, which was inspired by the Swati tradition. And I have a wall mirror, which was inspired by the Ndebele tradition. My designs are mostly, okay, so the Gimba cabinet, like I said, is inspired by the Swati tradition. The doors and the patterns on the doors are inspired by the Swati tradition, but the shape itself is mostly inspired by me sort of like attempting to explore different manufacturing techniques and all that. So the whole intention is to sort of like, try and establish myself as a reliable manufacturer, you understand? And I know how important it is, because if I am able to establish myself successfully as a manufacturer, I know that it's going to create like a lot of business opportunities for interior designers and furniture designers as a whole, you understand? So, because I've actually noticed that we have a lot of interior designers and we have a lot of furniture designers, but we only have like only a few furniture manufacturers, you understand? Yes. So like it's really important to sort of like try and push the manufacturing side, especially here in South Africa, to like have more manufacturers.
And just picking up on what Sipho said, which I think is very important, around the challenges with manufacturing in the South African space. If you can chat a little bit, and especially with regards to the Nando's design program,
Sure.
how those challenges are being dealt with.
I mean, I think it's one of the biggest challenges because as a designer and a manufacturer, you wear so many hats. So not only being a creative, but being able to manufacture is really challenging. Yeah. There's massive cost involved. There's a lot of risk involved in setting up your business, and there's a lot of peripheral elements to a design business that you have to be very professional at in order for interior designers or architects to trust that you are going to be able to deliver. So I think that's what, as Clout SA and the Nando's design program, we are wanting to facilitate mentorship opportunities in this space. We recognize opportunities in that space. So we introduce the designers to established designer makers and they then spend time working on pieces together. So, for example, Katlego worked with Dr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. are extraordinary, they're very established, they have a strong visual language, they have a strong presence, and they are really globally recognized for the work that they do. And Katlego, they really appreciated his aesthetic approach, and when they met him, they felt that there was the opportunity to build a relationship, and he's been working with Adrian from Dr. and Mrs. And the piece that you see that's part of the exhibition was brought to life as a part of a collaboration. And I think the learning has been extraordinary for Katlego, who is a designer, brilliant designer, but had not manufactured. Whereas Thando and Sipho have worked in programs with established designers and been part of a team and learned manufacturing. So that brings back this concept around really needing to have hands-on experience. It's not only about the concepts and the creativity.
Yeah, it's one thing to like conceptualize. I think like Sipho was saying this, it's like one thing to conceptualize something, but it's another thing to like get it into like a manufacturing process and making sure that the process is repeatable. I think that's something very important when it starts like coming to manufacturing. I think like working with Adrian over like the last several months, I'm still working with him, so I've been like at the factory over the last couple of months or so. It's like you really start to see like the process. It really starts with like, I think manufacturing should come before design, because yeah, it's like one thing to design something, you know, but it's another thing to like make it, you know. And yeah, I think the more you start making more things, then you start like looking at, okay, instead of this shape looking like this, maybe it could look like this, you know, because then manufacturing starts influencing the design process more. The important thing is like, is it repeatable? You know, it's like, can we repeat this thing? Because what if you buying one and then Tracy's buying one and then someone else is buying one? We don't want it to look different for like across all three. So you want like the process to be like almost get to a point where it's standardized.
You know, building trust with your clients is a whole lot of paperwork and a whole lot of systems and a whole lot of things that have to happen. So especially in the Nando's world, where if you're on the portal to Africa, there are lots of boxes that have to be ticked. And when you study industrial design or product design or graphic design, or when you even study to become an artist, there aren't necessarily any facets of that study direction that talk about the business that you will need to create afterwards to sustain your passions and your livelihood. So that has really been a focus for us, and wanting to start at really a basic level. So things like, have you got your tax in order? Have you got your tax number? You can't be part of an ordering system if you don't have those things. Have you got a bank account? You know, all of the things that go into facilitating payments. And then if you employ people, have you got your HR in order? So there are so many things, and it's not about, oh, you know, you haven't got that, so on we go. No, we have the knowledge, so we can share that. And how do we help you understand what's needed and find ways to get your businesses going? So small steps, lots of detail, lots of patience, but the outcome is hopefully having designers such as the emerging designers here represented on the portal and having access to the market. So there's a level of professionalism. We all have to rise to the occasion. We can't be shipping pieces around the world that don't stand the test of time. They have to be restaurant ready. And so all of this professionalism is crucial for us as designers. We've got the aesthetics. There's no doubt about that. The way we approach a design brief is totally unique. We have access to craft skills. That we've nailed. It's incredible. The handmade, we know how to do that. But we have to be on the same level with everything. Just with wrapping your pieces, it all seems so random. But if you don't wrap your beautiful mirror properly and it arrives at the installation and it's in pieces, then what? So how do we handle all of that? And we've got wonderful designers that are part of the design community that have been doing this for years. They've perfected these skills, and they want to share these skills. So this is part of the mentorship program, as is the business side, as is sharing all of the knowledge that makes people feel, that makes the designers feel empowered. because so much is taken for granted. But in our profession, it's in the details. We have to know how to deliver. And that's how we build the confidence, because there are a lot of interior designers and architects that are nervous to work with emerging creatives. And that's what we've seen in the industry, and that's what's super important to us, especially with the Nando's Design Program and Clout SA, to help build that confidence. And it's not just a desire to participate. It's actually getting into the details and sharing the skills and finding ways to link mentorship opportunities. That's really what's important to us.
And how should a designer approach their thinking about price?
I mean, this is a very good part of the conversation. I'm so glad you brought it up, because somehow I didn't include it when we were talking earlier about all the things that go into a business. And this is one of the major elements of getting it right. So factoring in all of this, there's always the tension in our sector around pricing. We never get away from it as an interior designer or as a supplier, or whatever we from whatever side of the spectrum we're engaging. Costing is radical. So I think you have to cost your pieces appropriately. There's a whole process that you go through, and Katlego, I know you've been very closely involved, because when we started engaging with Katlego and Adrian from Dr. and Mrs. About the Bench, there was a specific budget that was proposed. And I think that's also something that's super important, is making showstopper pieces that are collectible pieces that are massively expensive is incredible, and they attract an enormous amount of attention to your creative process. But that's not what keeps the wheels turning. So in our space, unlike the fine art space, it often is about making multiples. So getting your costing appropriately aligned with what the client's expectation is. So you can always walk away and you can say, I can't design for Nando's because they can't afford me. That's fine. But if you do want to design for Nando's, then you've got to relook everything. And exactly what you were saying, Sipho, around materials and what is appropriate to use and how can you make it work and still express your vision and your values and what's important to you about the quality of your pieces, but get it to the right price point. So it's a very technical exercise. There's not one size fits all. So it's a process that you go on, and it's part of the design process, and it's a crucial part of the design process. Just deciding that you won't hand paint a detail on your bench could actually mean that the pricing drops by 20%, which makes a piece more affordable and actually means that it will sell, which seems so crazy, but that's the reality. So, I mean, often the piece that you see, the end piece, is an extraction of that awesome concept because it's just not realistic. So, I mean, everything has to be factored in. Your packaging, the hours spent in your factory, the rental, the materials, the fluctuation in materials. And that's been a real problem in the COVID pandemic, where shipping costs have fluctuated radically from week to week. Steel shortages, powder coating, all the kind of things that we all work with that are little components, just one little piece of a product. It's crazy the amounts of detail. But and then, of course, comparing to retail, that's really hardcore, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And we come up against this challenge all the time. So it is just about committing to a process, finding where you can go, and then there's a point where there is no more compromise, because you can't be selling yourself short, because you're just going to be dead in the water. And you're gonna be crippled by your bills, you won't be able to create, and your business will just die.
How do you reach the correct target market with your pieces, specifically when they're not your generic home and leisure pieces?
With me, so when I came into the industry, I didn't have any connections, obviously. I didn't have any, I didn't know any people who are going to connect me to clients or anything like that. So my approach from the get-go, if you can go to my IG from the get-go, I was like, I'm going to come in as unique as possible. You understand? And I'm going to use that as my selling point, because I'm a very horrible salesperson, like verbally. You understand? So I was like, I'm going to use my products are going to sell themselves. You understand? So I'm going to use the visual sort of like part of my creativity. So what I did was I worked on perfecting my rendering skills so that I can be able to design and render and post on IG, and then you understand that actually creates some kind of, because I mean it's a unique piece. I always make sure that it is as unique as possible, so I can attract as many, so I can attract some attention as much as I possibly can. So my approach was that I was like, I'm going to go in as unique as possible.
I understand the importance of finding a target audience, a target market, but then it's really hard. It's extremely hard to do that, especially if like myself, as an abstract designer or conceptual designer, your market could be anywhere within the pool. So hence, I just let the work speak for itself. That's how it actually happens to reach to the people that actually are gaining attention from it. Another way of me reaching out into the market is basically interaction. I like talking to people. I like having conversations such as these with like-minded people, and that's how I then actually discover ways of reaching out even further, into the market, and yeah, that's essentially just the top part of it. Yeah.
Actually, just especially for that marketing part, for the second part of your question, and I think, Tracy, I think you'll be able to answer that first part as well, but there's something that you mentioned, which was around, especially in terms of getting your work in front of the right target market. And I think we're having a conversation a while back around how designers can connect with interior designers as a way, product designers rather, can connect with interior designers as a way to get their work out there. If I can ask you to just touch on that.
It's a very competitive space, and it's another massive focus that you need to have is marketing your work. And Thando says he's brave around around letting the work speak for itself, and to a certain extent it does need to do that, but you need to drive the allowing people to understand your approach, your point of difference, where you want to be selling your work is also something you need to know. Are you working on a luxury model for high-end designers? And what we were chatting about is, because a lot of the work I've done in the past has been in the magazine industry. And South Africa has incredible interior design and architecture magazines. And this is a really a wonderful space for you to approach decor editors and stylists. Stylists are always looking for new, beautiful pieces. And if you make it easy for them, if you write to them and you share images and you say, I'm happy to drop off my pieces. If you want to include them in a shoot, I'll come collect them. Make it easy. Because the exposure you get is not only the broader design publics, people that are interested in design seeing your work, but also the context that they're seeing it in a beautiful setting, beautifully shot, adds so much value to your work. So use that, and don't be afraid to reach out. I think it's important to know that when you reach out and you don't get a response, it's not necessarily because somebody hasn't liked your work. It's just perhaps the timing isn't quite right. So perhaps you need to be a little bit more feisty. And I love that around a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've encountered in my work in the design program. I love how incredibly persuasive they often are, how they keep at it. They've got this drive, and it inspires me. It makes me feel, maybe not today, but in 2 weeks' time, that person pops into my head. I'm like, let me see what they're doing. Let me see if I can get hold of that piece. Let me see if this is appropriate to introduce them to this person. So the more you are foremost in mind of the people that are out there marketing, the better. So there are many ways to do this, and marketing on Instagram is incredible. You have access to so much, and you can create your own content so beautifully. So this was never there before. When I was starting out working as a stylist, it was all about those big productions, which was very exciting. But now you can create your brand, and you can use that opportunity. And I really think finding a way to speak to people in a unique voice is crucial.
Like how big a role does storytelling play in your individual practices and businesses?
I think for me, it's very important, but it's not the only thing. You know, I think as we were speaking, it's important to it creates an identity around you. You know, it's like this is who I am, right? But after that, you still want to create products that are universal. You know, it's like as much as yes, I'm South African, yes, I'm African, I still want my piece to sit in an American home and still fit in. You know, so you're also looking at how do I create products that are a bit universal, you know? And I guess it goes back to the standardization of the products, you know. It's once we have the product, how often, how many of these can you create, you know? And also it's looking at when you styling your home, you know, it's if you have a piece and someone comes into the house, it's you want to be able to say, oh, this is a South African piece and this is the story behind it, you know. But it's not necessarily that everything in your home is driven to say, okay, you're not bringing everything out of your shelf and saying, this is by this is by that, this is by that, and this is by that. You know, some pieces are just in the home because it's nice.
From my point of view, right, storytelling is vital in a product. I mean, it does give context, right? However, it can be different from one situation to another, you know. Storytelling doesn't necessarily mean there's something that has to be told by looking at a certain object, but maybe the process behind it, you know. I'm very technical, you know. To get my products out, I need to sit down and actually think the maths through, you know. That's literally how my storytelling goes. It's basically figuring out the different stages that I need to go in, you know.
With me, based on my experience and how I sometimes come up with my ideas, is you know, sometimes you cannot choose what inspires you. You know, sometimes you just, you know, maybe I'm looking at this table, and I get ideas on how I can maybe just, you know, it triggers an idea in my head, you understand? And it's hard to put that into a story, you know, to properly explain it, because sometimes some of my designs, they actually inspired by a collection of, you know, events maybe, or different ideas that I've had in the past, you understand? So it's I don't sort of want to, because I have been advised to, you know, sometimes to sort of whenever I post my designs, I should attach some, you know, African story or whatever the case may be. But I don't want to be fake about it. You understand? If it comes naturally, it comes. You understand? And if I'm going to be fake about it, maybe there's someone else who gets ideas the way I get them, and that person's going to get discouraged. You understand?
Yes.
Everybody has a story, is attaching African stories to their designs, so it means this is the way to go. You understand? They're going to become discouraged. Whereas, like I say, sometimes you just cannot choose what inspires you. You just look at something and ideas pop into your head and you start drawing. You understand? So. So me, I'm mostly driven by improving my manufacturing technique, because I am a passionate furniture designer, but I'm also a very passionate manufacturer. You understand? I'm really about pushing my manufacturing skills to the limit. But yeah, cool.
And let's not forget that the work we do has to function. A table, a chair, a light. So we are, although we do touch on the space of collectible design and design just for aesthetics as showcase opportunities, most of the work is really about a piece that is totally functional and durable and will stand the test of time.
Just Tracy, in case there's people who would like to somehow, you know, get their work in or get involved with the Nando's design program, with Clout SA, what kind of opportunities are there for people to get? Yeah.
So in the beginning of next year, we're announcing our Nando's Hot Young Designer 2022. So that's exciting. So you can most certainly enter that, and that would be wonderful to see what you want to share. And I think you can reach out on Instagram, on our Clout SA Instagram handle, and our Nando's Hot Young Designer Instagram handle. Anybody that wants to come up to me afterwards and share their details and wants to share what they're keen to express and find ways to connect, please feel free. I think I'm so extraordinarily inspired by the three of you and the way you have engaged. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been such a learning. It's always a learning for me, and I think for everyone in the audience. And the work is looking incredible, and I know that they're just wonderful things that are coming. So thank you so much, and thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I'm sure there's going to be lots of guys coming to